Welcome to Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. On this podcast, we journey through the devastating experience of the death of a child. Grief is seldom discussed openly in our culture, and the death of a child makes people feel even more uncomfortable. We approach the topic openly and honestly, speaking to people who have lost loved ones and experts who help care for them. Whether you are a parent experiencing loss or someone who wants to support another going through this tragedy, this podcast strives to offer hope and help.
Welcome to episode number 289 of Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. I'm Marcy Larson, Andy's mom. Today, I have the pleasure to introduce you to Sherri. Sherri is Connie's mom. Sherri has been reaching out to a lot of parents since Connie's death, and we'll talk about that later in the episode and how she has been more active on Instagram and Facebook. But she did want me to let you know that she really appreciates hearing from other parents. So if you feel moved by her story or feel that there's someone that she can help, she wanted me to give you her email address. So her email address is Sherri, Sherri, at itsalifeunexpected.com. And that's all kind of one word. Itsalifeunexpected.com. I really enjoyed talking to Sherri today, and I loved seeing the pictures that she sent of Connie and the little video of Connie. So make sure to watch on my social media. So watch on Instagram and Facebook on Always Andy's Mom, and you can see some of those fun videos that we're going to put together. Also, if you want to share your story on the podcast, write to me at Marcy, Marcy, at andysmom.com. Right now, I just want you to sit back and enjoy listening to Sherri, Connie's mom. Thank you so much, Sherri, for coming on the Always Andy's Mom podcast today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
I am really looking forward to talking to you and hearing about Connie. I just was telling you before we started recording, so I want to say this to the audience. You know, most of the time I have people send me those pictures and videos after we do the interview. That's just something we talk about. Like, is there anything else I need to do? Well, you can send these pictures and videos, but you asked me this question a few days ago. You sent me an email. Is there anything I'm going to need? And I thought, well, I can ask her for the pictures and video now. I'm so glad that I did, because then I got to see all these fun pictures of Connie and a really funny video of her dancing. And it just gave me a little sense of her personality before we started talking.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to do this more often, because now I'm extra excited to talk about her, because I feel like I got to see a little bit of her and see a little bit of that personality.
Oh,
so
good.
Anyway, now I get to hear about her, so I get to get a story with the pictures that I've already seen. And if all of you want to see those pictures, be sure to follow me on social media. So if you go on Instagram or on Facebook, I'm Always Andy's Mom. So it's my Always Andy's Mom Facebook page or Instagram. And then over these next few days, you'll see these fun pictures of Connie. And then you'll hear Sherri and I talking in little bits in the interview. So that's kind of a fun thing to do. But just not everybody does it. So let's get everybody out there and get on social media if you are, just so you can see that. But for now, Sherri, tell me about your daughter, Connie.
Oh, thank you. I love talking about her.
Of course.
Connie's the youngest of 4 children.
Okay.
And we have said from probably when she was 2 years old on that we had 2 girls, a boy, and a Connie. Like, we just... She was unique. She was different from the others, but you don't really know exactly how she's different. It's not like you could put your finger on it. She was just different. She was a little spicy. She was our extreme animal lover from such a young age. And I'm talking catching toads in styrofoam cups, bringing them in the house, asking to take baths with them, all the way up to... I mean, there was a time period when she was still in early high school that we had a 3-foot ball python in our basement.
Oh my gosh.
So, and then the bunny rabbits and the dogs and the cats and birds at different times, always the animals. And she loved it. I mean, I'm good with animals. I'm not a pet lover, She loved animals, and she thought they all had feelings, and from her hermit crab to her dog, I mean, any of those. So she was that way. She was also I didn't really know this early on, but she was an empath on a whole different level, and
Yeah.
she always felt for everybody. She felt them,
Right.
and she was always an underdog person. If you were an underdog, she's all for you, and she got to determine what underdog meant. And when she was 4 years old, she viewed her grandfather as the underdog because he was bald, and she just felt so sad that he had no hair. So she would sit on the arm of his chair and just rub his head and just, "I'm so sorry you don't have hair." Like, she genuinely felt badly for him. So
That is so sweet.
that was her. As a very young child, she wasn't embarrassed to be her unique self right out there in front of other people. In fact, sometimes she embarrassed her siblings with how unique
Yeah.
and out there she was. She was a whistler. She taught herself to whistle, and then that girl could carry any tune and whistle. At 7, 8, 9, she taught herself to yodel. I mean,
Wow.
there's not a person in our family that yodels. Where did that come from? She wanted to learn, she taught herself, and she could do it. So she was
Wow.
yeah, it was just different. She didn't play sports, she wasn't a sports person, no instruments, nothing like that, but she could sing, carry a tune. So she was just in some ways, she was your normal average kid. In other ways, she had her unique things. So that's kind of her growing up as a little girl and the youngest of 4.
Oh, so sweet. I love that. And she was a dancer too, because you sent me a video of her dancing.
She's never taken a dance class in her life, but she's a
Really?
no, but she
Yeah.
is a natural dancer. The
Yeah, for
rhythm,
sure.
whether she's really trying to be or like the video I sent you goofing
Yeah.
off,
Yeah, she was just being silly, but I loved it because I thought she was probably a dancer because you could see so much rhythm in her. I mean, I knew she was just goofing around, but
but that rhythm is there.
that rhythm was there. Yeah, for sure.
Yes, we had just sold our kitchen table, and that's that big
Okay.
open space there, and that's what she was doing. Just dancing right there. She hit her head one time on the light there.
Oh, that's so sweet. So you said she was your youngest.
Yes.
What were the age gaps of all the kids then?
About 2, 2.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
when she was born, my oldest was 7 years old.
Oh, so you had them all pretty close together.
Mhm.
It wasn't like she was a tag along or anything.
No. Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, but Connie did have some struggles too.
She did.
Yeah.
She did. We first started noticing stuff when she was about 15, I think, and it was more just, like, isolating.
Hmm.
My 2 older girls got married within 4 months of each other the same year, so
Oh wow.
that's when I noticed her struggling, and I was just thinking, well, her sisters are leaving, and while it was
Yeah.
all natural and good, it left Connie as the only one in the upstairs, and all 3 girls used to be upstairs, and now she's the only one, so I thought it's just an adjustment. We homeschooled.
Yeah.
I had put homeschool on the back burner while we were getting ready for a wedding, but I really noticed her just isolating, seeming down, like,
Hmm.
and I just thought, it's all the wedding hubbub. Once we get these behind us, get back to normal, she's gonna be fine. And she wasn't. She never was fine again, really. So that's when I first started. That'd been like 2013, 14 that I first started noticing some issues. And from there, it went to I was driving with her to town one day, and she was driving. She had just gotten her permit, I guess. And she had her hands on the steering wheel, and I'm sitting beside her, and I could see on the inside of her wrist, there were red marks all over her wrist. And she had tons of little, bracelets on. And I first saw that, and it just hit me like a gut punch of what is going on. And so I asked her, "Hey,
Yeah.
what'd you do to your wrist?" And she shook her bracelets down real fast and said she cut it on the fence when she was feeding the goats. And I knew immediately
She didn't.
That
Yeah.
wasn't it. Anyway, that's
Mhm.
when I first noticed self-harming, which over the months just escalated. I mean,
Mhm.
terribly. So there was all these different things you start noticing and trying to find out what's going on. Eventually, being able to get her into counseling and therapy. And we walked the path trying all the things. And somewhere in there, there was a suicide attempt. That was probably
Wow.
2015. Yeah.
So she was still pretty young then, right?
Yes. I think she was 17 at that point.
Wow.
Yeah. So there came a point where we realized we couldn't fix this. We couldn't even get enough help with counseling. A counselor kind of only helps if Connie would let the counselor help.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I could take her there, drive her there, drop her off, but I can't make her talk. So
I know.
in October of 2015, we did send her away to a residential treatment facility
Mhm.
up in Indiana. So it's like 11-hour drive for us. It was a year-long program. We sent her there. And, it was a huge step. It was very hard to do and,
Yeah.
as a parent to acknowledge that you can't help your child, like, "We
Yeah.
can't do this. We need help," like professional, serious help. That
Mhm.
was
Mhm.
devastating. But I do know when we got her there, in my mind thinking, "Good, it's not a 30-day program, it's a year program, and they're really gonna help her." And I wasn't quite so naive as to think she would be fixed coming out
Mhm.
of there. But basically, the worst would be behind her and, could go forward.
She could get some different coping strategies to try to figure out kind of what to do when the feelings, got
Yes.
to that point, right?
Yes.
And different healthier ways to cope, right?
Yes.
That's the hope.
And she did. She did come out of there with some better coping strategies and skills. And I still to this day believe going there saved her life at that
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
But she started going downhill fairly quickly after that. She moved in with a mentor she had for probably 5 or 6 months, and then she got her own place, own apartment. So now she's out of the house. She's 19 years old.
Hmm.
So we still regularly see her and communicate with her. She was in our same town, but she's not living at home. So I don't really know what all is going on with her,
Right.
but I did
Right.
later learn that she was doing a lot of partying.
Hmm.
I noticed she was going through some jobs kind of quickly, but you don't really know what's happening because she's not at home. She's adulting and we're letting her adult.
And right. And they make mistakes, right? Kids make mistakes,
Yes,
and you kind of, in some ways, have to let them,
you do.
because if you try to push too hard, they push back, and you end up being in a worse situation a lot, right? You
Yes. Yes.
absolutely didn't want her to
No.
suddenly totally break things off and not want to talk to you anymore. So you
Right.
have to kind of let her do these things.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things as a parent sometimes is standing back
Mm-hmm.
and allowing them to make their own choices and then allowing them to have the consequences of those choices and not trying to save them from those too,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and just kind of being there ready to help pick up pieces. That's hard.
Right. That is really hard. You are correct. Really hard.
It is, but that's what we had to do multiple times. In 2017, I got a call from police officer so and so and he told me he had my daughter at UVA hospital. So when he called me, he was trying to tell me that he had my daughter, and he starts telling me this story, and I couldn't even absorb it. My brain just
Right.
froze, and it was a blur, but I kept getting words, like bridge, restraining, trying to jump,
Wow.
at the hospital, admitting, psych ward. So just trying to take all of this in and, I go to the hospital and
Sure.
she was there and spent time with her. And then she was admitted to the psych ward for like 7 or 9 days. I can't remember, something like that. So that was kind of, I already knew she was struggling, having problems. This was like another level. You're
Yeah, for sure.
on your own and adulting and having your job and living by yourself, but you are to this point where you tried to do that was a huge jolt for me.
Mm-hmm.
Huge jolt.
Mm-hmm.
And like I'll never ever forget it. It's like a stake in the ground, every before that and after that.
Right.
So from there went on. I didn't. Sometimes she was in there for like 9 days and then came home.
And then did she come home? Did she come home to stay?
I picked her up and brought her to
Right.
the house, and within 3 hours, some people had picked her up, and
Oh, whisked her off.
I didn't see her for 3 weeks. Yeah, I didn't. There was no.
Oh,
So we spent weeks, days, and weeks at a time that we had no idea where she was living. We knew she was out of her apartment. And then it kind of goes down to 2018. I'm skipping so much, but I'm trying to hit
oh yeah, that's fine. Right.
the highlights. 2018, I got a call from her and she was in jail. So that was another just
Yeah.
never get a call from your child in jail. But I do remember my first words to her were, "Thank God."
Yeah.
And later, we talked about that, and she says, "Do you remember your first words when I told you I was in jail?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." She goes, "You said 'thank God.'"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yes, because I knew where you were. I knew you were gonna be safe."
And you knew it was safe. She was safe there.
Yes. Yes. So
Mm-hmm.
just knowing that, of course, I was devastated she was in jail, but I heard her voice. She was alive. She was safe. And because it had been a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So she ended up spending 77 days in jail. And it was during that time communicating with her that I learned for real and for sure how much drugs had become a part of her life. I knew she had used some here and there, and I definitely knew marijuana, but I certainly had no idea the depth and how much she was using. This was not in our world. I knew no one who used drugs or had mental illness problems. So it was all new to me. So we were having to learn as we went. So she spent a good bit of time in jail, and her charges would have kept her there several years, but she was released out of jail into a drug treatment court program.
Okay.
That's a year-long program with so many requirements. It's very intense, but the only way she could do that is if we allowed her to come back home because she has to have an address, a place to stay that's safe. She had had
Mm-hmm.
a DUI, so she couldn't drive herself to. So I would have to drive her to all of these requirements. So we
Mm-hmm.
started that in the fall of 2018, and that started Connie's recovery. For the
Mm-hmm.
first time, she got into real recovery, and I had the honor and a privilege, I still view it that way, of going through that with her, and it was during that time that my eyes were open, and Connie became very open and transparent and vulnerable.
Yeah.
What it was like, what she'd been doing, what she'd been struggling with, what it was like to be her. So that time period changed me.
Yeah. And that was precious to you, it sounds like.
It was.
Yeah.
It was brutal, it was raw, but it was precious, and it was from there, 2019, 2020, all to 2020, we had 3 beautiful years with her, as an adult,
Mm-hmm.
in recovery, clean, sober. She got married,
Yeah.
she had a good job, she was giving back into the recovery community in her job. Man, I'm so grateful for those 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And our closeness and our whole family's closeness, and, it was just good for all of us.
Right. And it did seem like the past was really behind her at that point, I'm sure.
It did.
Right?
It did.
Yeah. I mean, once you get 3 years, you're like, okay. Okay.
And I'm sure that was naive on my part to think
Mm-hmm. But I can understand why you would, right?
Yeah. You think you're good to go.
I can totally understand. Yeah.
Even though I also knew you're in recovery for the rest of your life. And,
Right, for sure.
that has to be priority. But you kind of like, the steps and you've done the things. So now you know what to do to stay this way. So
Right.
she did until 22, the end of like November of 22. And she relapsed, and we had moved to Nashville at that point, my husband and I, and she relapsed back in Virginia. Probably 2 weeks she was down, active addiction, and we invited her to come to Nashville to stay with us.
Mm-hmm.
Get her feet back on the ground, get her head screwed on straight, kind of restart.
Mm-hmm.
So she did.
Because she was married at this point, or no?
She was, but she left
Yeah.
him. Yeah.
Ah,
She couldn't bear, I think, partly what she was doing to him.
yeah.
And, whatever the demons were in her head that she was fighting just made her leave.
Mm.
But she came to us, and the very end of November 22, she was there for Thanksgiving Day.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I hoped would be a restart and offering her a safe place in a new city where she knew no one
Right.
was really a fairly fast descent into just really bad active addiction. And when Connie is in active addiction, she goes down very low.
Yeah. And so that was in Nashville.
Yes.
She was there with you.
Yeah. And it was different that time. You're not 18.
Yeah.
19, early 20, learning about recovery. She's 25 at this point, and it's a little more hands-off. She's living with us, but we can't make her do anything. We're just offering our home as a safe place, our love. And I know she appreciated it, but she just couldn't fight. She lost the fight.
Yeah.
And she ended up in jail in Nashville. We again decided we wouldn't bail her out. And they ended up letting her out of jail in 2 weeks because
Wow.
in Nashville or Tennessee, she was a first-time offender. They didn't look across states and see, so they let her out. And it was a month later. Yeah, about a month later. It was middle of April on a Sunday afternoon that we got the call.
Just so horrifying to get that.
You have that many parents that have gotten it.
Yeah. So who was it that called you? Was it the police that called you then, or?
It was a chaplain for the Nashville Metro City Police. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they had found my daughter in the back of her car.
Oh.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. It just takes your breath away, doesn't it?
it still does. It still hurts so much when I think about it and how miserable she was, how awful she had to have been and felt to do what she did.
Right. Because I think you had told me that she died by intentional overdose.
Yes, she did.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And we know that because she did leave a couple of messages to her husband and one to a best friend. That's how we know.
Yeah. Otherwise, it can be hard to know sometimes too, right?
Yes.
You don't know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's where your grief journey started.
In a way, but I also realized later that my grief journey started in a way a long time ago because I grieved her when she was still living.
Mm-hmm. You sure did.
You grieve what could have been, and you kind of have these images in your head of what it's going to be like as your children grow up and what they're going to do and living, their life. And that didn't happen with her. So I grieved that a long time ago. And I grieved, there were months we didn't know where she was, if she was living or dead. So you kind of have these bits of grieving as you go through the journey. But there's nothing quite like the finality of getting that call. I mean, now it's final. It's for sure.
Right.
So yeah, there's in a way that my grief journey began at that time.
Yeah, probably this more final grief journey, right? In
Yes.
some ways,
Yes.
because you had all of these other ones that you were talking about when different things would happen, but now this one,
Yes.
this is different because this one is final, and this one there's no kind of going back and having a recovery period and
Right.
having some of those good times.
And in the previous ones, there was always a little bit of hope.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So that would make that different. And now there's not.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about your grief journey and what that's been like.
Grieving has surprised me how much courage it takes to grieve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That has surprised me because it's easy to shut down
Yes.
and just go numb.
Yeah.
But to let yourself grieve when the waves hit you, when the memories come, to let yourself go there and grieve takes courage. To not hide your grief, to be open about it, and to grieve together as a family with each other. It has surprised me, and I don't know if that's the right word, but I feel like it takes courage to grieve.
I absolutely love that you said it like that. I think that's the perfect way to articulate it
Hmm.
because it does take courage to do that because it is easy sometimes to just try to stuff it away.
Yeah.
And I think even culturally, that you hear that old adage that time heals all wounds, and I think people will think, I just got to get through time.
Yeah.
I've just got to get through the first 6 months. I just have to get through the first year. I just have to. And they think they're just punching a clock. And if they keep punching that clock and you get to a certain number of days or months or that year point or whatever, that things will start to somehow just get better. And that it doesn't work that way at all.
It doesn't. And in fact, I have found, sometimes you're actually in situations where I cannot fall apart right now. I'm at work.
Yes, right, sure, exactly.
Or I have my grandkids here, so I can't fall apart. So I kind of I'm going to put it in the back of my head, kind of on the back burner. And I'll fall apart later.
Right.
And then your day kind of moves along and you're okay-ish and you never fall apart. And then tomorrow, something like that happens again. And I have found when I stuff it in the back burner too many days, it will come back and bite me. So I have to allow myself to grieve. And I've also learned this practice or an art of intentional grieving. And somebody told me that, and I was like, what? Intentional grieving? I don't want to do that. Like, it's bad enough as it is. But it's amazing. And it's just sometimes when I have the brain space and the time, it's like, I'm just going to go sit. I'm going to look at my Conni chimes we have hanging outside. I'm going to look at a picture of her, and I'm going to purposely right now in this moment think of her and grieve her.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like now after I do that, now I can go on about my day.
Yeah.
I wasn't being hit by waves of grief, but I went on purpose to grieve. I don't do it all the time, but occasionally I know that's what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
But that was something I had never heard of, intentional grieving.
I think it's so important. I mean, I feel like at that almost the first year, I felt like I was just grieving all the time. And then as I started to heal and started to feel a little bit better, and that actually happened after I started the podcast, really a year later, and I was able to go back to work, I would find that okay, I would really tell myself, I work on the podcast on Tuesdays and Fridays. Tuesdays and Fridays are my Andy days. Tuesdays and Fridays are my grieving days. And I found that Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, when I was working, I could tolerate those so much better because on Monday, I can get through Monday because I know tomorrow is an Andy day.
Yes.
Tomorrow is a grieving day. And I gave myself that permission to do that. And now I'm 6 years out, and it doesn't have to be all day. Right?
Yeah.
It can be shorter periods of time. It's not, 2 full days a week that I'm doing this. But do I still make sure to take the time to spend with Andy and think about Andy? Sure, I do.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I'm healthier in my grief when I do.
Yes. Yes. I like the
Mhm.
way you have those days. It's like you've intentionally made space for it. So you have it to look forward to, kind of.
Yeah.
That's your Andy
Mhm.
day. So you know
Mhm.
you can make it through Monday because Tuesday's coming.
Yes, exactly.
That's
Exactly.
really good.
And I have other friends that have certain periods of the day, certain things they're going to do, and it's time they've set aside that is just time to mourn their child and time to grieve, and it just makes the rest of your day
Mm-hmm.
feel easier
Yeah.
when you know you've got that time coming.
Yes.
Mhm.
That's beautiful. It's interesting how, with all the different stories, how much similarity there is among the people you interview.
Yes, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know. I know.
I like.
Because, you and I, you'd think, there's not a whole lot of similarity there at all. My 14-year-old kid. And
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't seem like it on the surface, but you dig a little deeper and the grief is the same.
Right.
And what we're feeling is the same. And the lost dreams and all of that is exactly the same.
Yes.
And even if I interview somebody tomorrow who lost their infant child, same. I mean,
Right.
there's so many things that are just the same.
Circumstances are different,
Mm-hmm.
but grief is grief.
Grief is grief.
It really is.
And losing a child is losing part of yourself. It's losing so much of your future. It's losing so much.
Yes.
That's just the same, no matter what the circumstances or the age or whatever.
Yeah. One thing about the grief that has surprised me too is I thought grief would be more just like, she's gone, I miss her.
Yeah.
But man, you grieve the future. All the
Yeah.
things that she's not going to be here for, the nieces and nephews that will be born that she
Yep.
never sees, all of the things that I grieve. This went through me. I grieve the part of me that was only with her. The who I was just with her. It's
Yeah.
kind of a way you are with each of your children, and that part is gone. It's just gone, and I'm not the same.
Right. Old you is gone.
So the grieving is on levels I never dreamed. I don't think you ever know.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. Old Marcy is not the same. And I remember saying that to somebody. It was several years ago. It was actually when I was going back to work. I was going to go back to work. It was about a year later. And I said, I was crying at the time. I was really upset. And I said, I miss me.
Yes. That's it.
Because I miss Andy and I know I miss Andy, but I miss me. I wasn't me anymore. I wasn't that same person. And it just was really sad.
You did.
To live that life that felt that sorrow, because at that point in time I was just feeling such a still deep sorrow every single day,
Yeah.
like multiple times a day, right? I was starting to see glimpses and I was thinking about going back to work, although it was right before I started the podcast, so I clearly was not ready to go back to work then. But I still remember this conversation and saying that to that person. And now I think I'm more comfortable with the new me.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I don't miss, I certainly miss parts of the old me.
Sure.
I do. I miss the naive parts and the just parts that just enjoyed just being a mom and didn't have to live in some fear of bad things happening all the time. But yet there are other parts of me now that I think are actually better.
Right.
Than the old one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that. And I feel that too in me, missing some of the old me, knowing I'll never be the same, but also knowing that doesn't have to be a bad thing.
Right. It doesn't. You are 100% right. That does not have to be a bad thing.
Early on, I joined different grief groups,
Mm-hmm.
On Facebook and stuff. And early on, it was so good. It just fed me. And it was like, oh, you're saying what I feel. That's the words. People write some beautiful things. And some things were so helpful. A year later, I found myself needing to get off a lot of those.
Yeah.
Partly because I don't want that to consume me.
Mm-hmm.
I have felt strongly about Conni died. Why should two of us die?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I 100% agree. I was on Facebook a lot too, but and there are some great groups. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to disparage them at all.
Absolutely.
But it does get to the point where like I just can't just think of that sadness all the time.
Yes.
And there was very little hope in a lot of those. It's just
Okay, so that's what I'm getting to. There were several that people would make the comments of, "You'll never be the same." And I agree with that one.
yes.
But I also have a feeling that doesn't have to be a bad thing.
Yes.
But then they would say, "Your best days are behind you. You'll never feel real
Oh.
joy again." When I started seeing more of that stuff, I was just, no, because I don't believe that. And I don't want to live that way. And Connie would smack me.
Yes.
She would be so mad. So I don't want to live that way. I want to live my life. I don't want to just breathe. It just exists.
Yeah.
I want to live again. And over the last, see, we're coming up on 2 years in April. It will be 2.
Mm-hmm.
Over the last year, 9 or 10 months, I have felt a shift of, it's not quite so all-consuming.
Yeah.
I'm breathing again. I'm living.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest thing probably that's helped me is not just since Connie's death, but the whole, it was a 10-year.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Age 15 to 25. It was a 10-year journey with her, with those 3 beautiful years in the middle there.
Yeah.
I had to learn how to live and go through all of that without losing myself. And going through addiction with somebody will consume you. Absolutely can consume you. And I had to learn to, because it was starting to, I had to learn to not let it. So the things I learned, studied
Yeah.
all through that time period
Uh-huh.
is actually what I'm able to draw on
Yeah.
after she died.
Yeah. I think you're really right on the money because I feel like a lot of people, you know, I've spoken to so many people over the years and a lot of people say year 2 is harder than year 1. And I think that for me in many ways it was harder than year 1. You know, you don't get as much outside support. It starts to feel more real. It's not as numbing. But I do think you were probably able to make that little transition a little earlier than some of us could. Right, because of exactly what you said.
Right.
Because you had already that experience of being in this despair of addiction and having it try to mold you and change you to become not you.
Right.
So when the grief started to do that, I think you could recognize it a little sooner maybe than some of the rest of us
Yes. Yes. And by then, too, I have learned so many tools and skills throughout my experience of that. So I'm able to draw on that. Nothing takes away the ache and the missing her,
would. No, right.
but learning how to walk through it, not get stuck in it. We all do days here and there, but to go on to live my life. I have a lot to live for, and I know Connie would want me to. I know she would.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
now, yes, grief is still there. It's an ever-present part of my life, but there's also a lot of hope.
Mm-hmm.
And now my goal, my purpose, I feel like, is to help other people, especially women, especially moms, navigating this world of loving someone that's lost to addiction or mental illness and ultimately suicide, how to go through that, how to love somebody through it and not lose yourself. That's such a big thing I learned, and that's what I want to give back and help other women with. And that's why I created the social media pages I did, because that's where you find yourself. One day you wake up and it's, how did I get here? This is not the life I expected.
Yes. Yes. So talk about those. Talk about your social media pages that you have, because that's what you talk about. It's a life unexpected, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Facebook and Instagram, it's a life unexpected. And it's about when addiction hits home and whatever that addiction looks like. And, whether it's husband, wife, child, aunt, uncle. Addiction is addiction. But
Yeah.
because I'm a mom and had a child that was an addict, that's kind of where I'm coming from. But I post about what it was like to be the mother side of it. And of course, Connie, she shared openly. We had a Facebook page together for a full year in her recovery where we shared as a mother-daughter team. So I have that to go back and look at. And so I'm sharing some of that stuff that she shared then, and just things that are true and real and that can be helpful to someone coming behind me. I know I won't be the last mom for this to happen to. And I want to try to give and be what I wish I had had. Because when it hit me, I had no idea. I didn't even know where to go for help besides Google.
Yeah.
I remember,
Yeah.
Marcy, I remember Googling one time. Connie was in jail and she's in jail. I'm going through her room in our house. She hadn't been there for a long time, but I'm tearing that thing apart.
Yeah.
And I'm suspicious. Like, what am I going to find? So I found a bag of spoons, like teaspoons, the long-handled teaspoons.
Okay.
First of all, I was like, that's where my teaspoons are.
Okay.
But secondly, like, why do you have these in your backpack? What in the world? Well, I Googled it.
Yeah.
And I found out it's used in heating drugs and
Yeah. To liquefy them. Yeah.
but that's how naive I was. I had no idea. So I was going to Google, but otherwise I didn't know who to talk to, where to go. Not for Connie, because there are so many resources for people in addiction. So many. There's almost nothing for those of us who love the addict. So that is my purpose. That is my passion, is to help those people.
Right. And there are so many different approaches with that too, right? You can have people that are on one side or the other on how to care for your loved one who's an addict.
Oh, yes.
With like tough love versus, just unconditional love and
enabling.
Right. Which some people would call that enabling. Right. There's all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to tease out, I think, too.
And in some ways, it's like there's no right or wrong answer.
No, I know.
Well, there are some wrongs for sure.
Yes, that's true. That's true. That's like when I tell people that there's no right way to grieve, and then like, yeah, but there are some really wrong ways to grieve for sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but also we get stuck in our own reality and we can't see any options outside of that. So that's when it's so good to have someone else speak into your life, be a part, and help you look at something a different way, or give you an idea here or there. Because I did have that a few times and it was like, oh my goodness, why didn't I know this before?
Right, because you have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
So have you gotten some feedback from people?
Yes.
With your social media? Yeah, talk about that.
I have. Right now, it's a lot of just people who already know me.
Yeah.
And support me anyway.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But my hope is to be able to reach others and people who are in that situation and need that encouragement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think it really will be a gift to people just to be able to hear somebody who's gone through it and lived it. Because how long have you had these pages up and going now?
A little over a year.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's what I wish I had had. I wish I had had somebody. I don't want to just go look it up in a textbook. I want somebody with lived experience to tell me what it's like. What does addiction really look like? Because it was hard for me to separate my daughter from addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And it was when I started going to 12-step meetings with her, and I hear people in the room sharing, and they're all saying the same thing. And I was like, oh, so that's not just Connie being a brat or rebellious or whatever. Y'all are all saying that's what addiction does.
Right.
So that, oh my goodness, that helped me so much. And I just want to, I know there's shame and stigma that is attached to addiction.
Yeah, I know.
And mental illness.
Which I hate. I hate there is.
There is.
It's terrible, but.
But you know what? I'm over it.
Yeah,
and
right.
I'm not going to do that, because what do we have to be ashamed about? I'm just not, I keep telling myself, I'm not going to buy into that. I'm going to keep speaking. And yes, we're going to use the A word, addiction. We're going to use the S word.
Yes.
Call it what it is, because it's when we name something that now we know what we're dealing with and we can talk about it. It's the skipping around and skirting around and not saying it that doesn't help anybody.
I know. I know just locally there have been a couple cases here that have on social media, and somebody young dying tragically, and you always know if they don't say why they died,
Yeah, really vague.
then it was either an overdose or a suicide.
Mhm.
It just bothers me so much because these families feel like they can't say.
Right.
That is terrible. There is no shame in that death versus my son dying in a car accident.
Right.
There is none.
Right.
And that stigma, it just, you can hear me getting angry because I get so angry and upset that I'm looking on Facebook and I see this teen that's died, and I know it must be one of those too because they don't say what it is.
Right.
And they say if it was cancer or a car accident or whatever, so you know. And that's just not okay. It's not okay that they should feel some kind of shame or
Right.
something over that. It isn't. It just makes then kids and teens and adults, whatever, who have struggles with addiction and mental illness not want to tell anybody.
Right, because they know, oh, can't talk about that.
They know that when they see somebody that's died from these struggles, they don't even put the cause of death. So this is clearly something that I need to be ashamed of, and I can't tell anybody, and I don't want my family to even know, and I don't want, because they're going to feel shame if, it just goes on and on and on. And if we just name it, this is a horrible, addiction is horrible.
Yes.
It is horrible. And it isn't, and I love too how you've talked about how you were able to separate Conni from the addiction.
Yes.
Like when you started to see other people, you go, oh, her doing these things was addiction.
Yes.
That's not Conni.
Yeah.
And now you can separate them out and
that was huge.
And love Conni and cherish Conni and hate the addiction.
Yes.
But not hating Conni.
No.
Right? And
right.
naming the addiction. And like you say, just put it out there. You say the words. You don't hide behind the words.
And what I found is the more open and vulnerable I am about saying that stuff, the more messages I get. And it's almost like me saying it gives other people permission to say, hey, me too.
Right.
Otherwise they're not going to say anything. So yeah, keeping everything hush hush, not saying the words actually does more harm than good. Yeah.
And they teach us too now, when I see kids and they're having anxiety, depression symptoms, you ask them, are you having thoughts of ending your life? Are you having thoughts of suicide? Are you name it. Name it. That's not going to suddenly put it in their head.
Yeah.
But if you name it, they might tell you if they are.
Yeah, because it's like you're giving them permission to talk about it.
Right. I'm totally giving them permission to talk about it. And and I think it's a relief. I know it's a relief when I see kids. I do think now, after having lost Andy, kids are more open with me about their pain and about their struggles. There are times when kids tell me that they can talk to me easier than they can talk to their own therapist, which is not cool. But it's because I think I'm more okay with it. I'm okay with them telling me how bad it is and how hard it is.
Yeah.
It's not going to scare me and freak me out and have me get all panicked,
There's something about when you've gone through the darkest and the ugly, before the death, going through the darkness and the ugly that we went through.
Yeah.
There's something that makes me, I'm not afraid of ugly anymore. I'm not afraid of you're ugly. So sitting with someone else as they share their ugly doesn't scare me.
No.
And I just have, all that we went through with Conni, watching not just Conni, but so many other addicts in recovery, learning what recovery is, what it looks like, how hard it is, gave me so much more compassion for just people in general, but especially for people
in general,
for those who struggle like that. So I would say, Conni, a gift she gave me is way more compassion, less judging, and I'm not afraid of ugly.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not afraid of ugly either.
And that's what you're saying.
Nothing anyone can say can scare me anymore. It just
Right.
doesn't. I mean, it can make me very sad, right? There's no question.
Right.
And certainly when I have kids that I just so desperately want to help, and I'm working to help and working to help and working to help, and they won't buy in and they won't accept the help, that breaks my heart and it is really, really hard.
Yeah.
But it doesn't scare me
Mm-hmm.
like I think it might have otherwise. Right? It's just a different feeling. But the compassion is certainly different now too. You've just seen pain differently. Well, I love that you've opened up your heart like this to people. And I hope that this might even serve to be a platform to help you, right? To be able to learn more about It's a Life Unexpected. And maybe if people who are listening, obviously most of the people who are listening have probably lost children already, but you may very well know people who are going through struggles that you can give this information to be able to help, right?
Yeah. You know, one of my favorite quotes, I read this probably a year and a half ago. It says, I can curse the darkness or I can light a candle. And that's it. That's what it is for me is, yes, it would be easy to fall into that trap of my life sucks. Look what happened to me. Life is hard. All of that. That would be easy to do. And a lot of people would say I have the right to, or I can light a candle. And that's what I want to do. That's what I'm doing. I'm lighting candles, as many as it takes.
Right. As many as it takes to try to get that a little bit of that darkness away, right?
That's right. There's enough darkness. I'm not going to waste my energy and breath cursing the darkness. When I can light a candle.
Mm-hmm. No, I was on social media at one point in time, or maybe it was a story that Gwen told me about someone. Yeah, I think it was a story that Gwen told me about a mom who woke up every day and sat in the dark and cried all day, every day. And then she went back to bed as a bereaved mom. And that is the opposite of what you're doing. Right? Mm-hmm. You are getting up every day and trying to light a few candles.
Yes.
Just to get that darkness away. And you're still crying and you're still upset, but you're lighting candles. You're not just sitting in the darkness. So I love that.
Right. That's my goal. That's my purpose. And I keep thinking about the me in 2018 that got those calls. Mm-hmm. I won't be the last mom.
No.
I will not be the last mom for that to happen to. And so if there's anything that I can give or share or teach or help with to help that mom coming behind me, that's what I want to do.
Right. And that mom can look to you and say, look at, she's still going. She's still going. Because that's what gives you hope when things are so, so dark. I mean, I remember at the beginning thinking, I cannot even think about what next week holds.
Right.
Let alone next month or next year. Like, I remember going to a support group, and I've said this on the podcast so many times, and I don't want to say anything bad about the support group leader that I had, but she said very early on, I think it was my first or second session, she said, I didn't feel like myself for 9 years. And that freaked me out to no end because I thought, I cannot feel like this for 9 years.
Oh.
I can't. But that's of course not what she meant. What she meant was that she felt, lighter and she wasn't feeling the pain, all the, that it gradually improved over those 9 years. But when she got to 9 years, she probably felt genuinely happy again. I'm not sure what exactly she meant, but it's very difficult when you're early on in grief, when somebody puts a number like that out to you.
Ooh, yes.
And thinking about a decade from now, a year from now, you're thinking about 5 minutes from now.
Yes.
And how am I going to make it until tomorrow? So those are the things that we need.
Yes.
Is just little things. Like you said, lighting a candle.
Yes.
Let's light a candle today. I'm not worrying about tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm just going to worry about lighting a candle today.
And other people who are in the darkness need to see the candle and need to see like, oh, I can survive this.
Yes, I can.
Doesn't mean we come out completely whole, but we can survive. And I know there's so much joy and light and love in my life, my family, my world. And yet in everything, there's that ever present awareness of the one who's missing.
Yes.
Like it's always there. And always there doesn't mean I can't get out of bed or I'm in a dark corner crying. It's just an awareness, not necessarily a weight. Sometimes it feels like a weight.
Yeah.
Other times it's just this awareness of the one who's not here with us.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, grief goes in and out, always with you.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also so much left in the world, in life, and love, and there's light, there's happiness. And I believe that, and that's how I'm choosing. And some days it's literally a conscious choice.
That's what I was just going to say. You're choosing, but you're actually making choice after choice after choice.
Yes.
So it's a choice that you make every day. You make multiple times a day. It's not like you
Yes.
make a choice one time and then it's just you're good now. No, it's not that at all.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's a frequent one.
It's a frequent one. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and sharing Conni with us today. And again, on Instagram and Facebook, Sherri is It's a Life Unexpected. So be sure to follow her there. And also follow me. Follow me, Always Andy's Mom. So yep, get on Instagram and Facebook and look at both of those. Thank you again.
Thank you, Marcy.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. If you found this helpful and would like to support the podcast, please leave a 5-star rating and comment. To help financially, you can type Andy's Mom, one word, to the number 53555. This provides a link to GiveButter, which allows donations through PayPal, Venmo, Apple Pay, or credit cards. GiveButter will provide a receipt of your tax-deductible donation, or you can visit the donation page at andysmom.com/donate. Always Andy's Mom is a registered 501c3 and can receive donations through Thrivent Financial and Benevity. Marcy loves hearing from listeners. Please feel free to reach out to her via email at marcy@andysmom.com or on the Instagram or Facebook Always Andy's Mom accounts. Sign up for the email list to get weekly episode links as well as pictures of Marcy's guests and their children. Together, let's work to inspire hope, one day at a time.